Welcome to JK Tells a Story, where real-life dramas unfold. Sit back and enjoy today's tale. So it's time for me to get out of bed and start the day. I have a lot to do today. It's the start. You want to know what's starting? So I begin the rest of my life. First day, yes, here it is. My life right now isn't much, but it's all I have. I work hard and try to do the right things. I think I was a good father. My children are good, they are young and very active. Tyler is 8, Madison is 6. They are wonderful children who like school. Tyler is in 3rd grade, Madison is in 1st. Children don't deserve what's about to happen. These are the consequences of their mother's actions. Let me tell you in more detail so that you understand what is happening. My children look like their mother. They have her eyes, her smile. They don't look much like me, but I'm not the most handsome guy on 2 legs. I'm not ugly either. I am exactly 6 feet tall and weigh 165 pounds. I run every day and exercise a couple of times a week. In the summer, I engage in cycling professionally, and in winter, I ski for fun. I have a full head of dark brown hair cut fairly short, and all my teeth are in place. My parents spent a lot of money on orthodontics when I was a kid, so my smile is pretty good. I wear glasses or contact lenses depending on what I'm doing. I am 34 years old. My wife Rachel is the same age as me, and we met at university. I'm a neurosurgeon and she's a web developer. Rachel, my children, and I live in Albany, New York. I know Albany, the most boring city in the universe. Take my word for it. Life in Albany is peaceful. Oh, don't get me wrong, Albany is a very nice city, I guess. The peaceful part is my life. Some, and clearly my wife is one of them, would call me boring. In my defense, I can say that the demands of everyday life, family, work, the hospital, and all these routine things that occupy our lives, have shaped me into such a person. When there's time for adventure, we have to squeeze it in with all the other demands. This means that the fun is sometimes limited to weekends and summers. This morning when I got out of bed and looked at myself in the mirror before running, I thought, damn, what should I do? I have a problem. I went for my usual morning run, and while I was running, I decided that I needed to talk to my friend Scott Harrison. We went to school together and grew up on the next street. I know his family well and they know mine. Scott is a friend and attorney. His practice focuses primarily on wills, probate, and some corporate law, but he also practices family law. So I made a mental note to call him. I got home around 6:30 after running, turned on the coffee maker, showered, and got dressed. Rachel was waking up and the kids were slowly coming to their senses. When I went down to the kitchen, I made school lunches and packed myself a sandwich and a piece of fruit. It didn't take long before everyone was sitting at the counter on the other side of the kitchen island, eating oatmeal and toast. We chatted a bit about the day, and I was reminded that there would be parent-teacher conferences at school soon. Everything seemed fine. I kissed everyone except Tyler goodbye. Tyler and I bumped fists. This is his new greeting. I walked out the door to another day of what I thought was a wonderful, boring life. The day of the parent-teacher conference coincided with the day of my own conference. It was a conference between 2 people, Scott and me. We met at a cafe that was about halfway between St. Mary's Hospital where I work and his office. We shook hands, having not seen each other for several months, and sat down. We ordered coffee and I ordered a piece of apple pie. Scott was always focused, and now was no exception. After the coffee and pie were delivered, he began, "Okay, Jake, what happened? I need your help. I have a problem that I need to solve, and I need your advice before I do anything." "Okay, what's the problem?" "Rachel." "Oh, what do you mean? The same Rachel you've been married to for what, 9 years? The same Rachel, the mother of your 2 children? This Rachel." I nodded my head, swallowing a piece of pie. "Yes, she is the one." "Geez, what's the problem?" I took a sip of coffee. "It seems that Rachel has been involved in some extramarital activity. I don't know how long. I'm just guessing." I spent an hour telling him what I knew. I tried to find a way to maintain my dignity. I was all for it now. "I guess I think you need a little background about me and my problem. This is true, I grew up in Albany. I graduated from high school here and received a scholarship to study at Columbia University in New York. I'm a smart guy and I've always been a good student. I think I'm a good person. I always try to do the right thing. I have a strong work ethic and I know the value of my family. I come from a good family. My parents taught me a lot about life and they gave me a strong foundation of values. They taught me to put family above everything else. With my own wife and 2 children, I see this lesson every day. My problem is that my wife has different ideas about what is important to us as a family. Rachel is seeing another man. I'm not sure I can live with this, but I don't know what to do. This is where Scott comes into play. I need his advice from both a legal and friendly point of view. So what should I do? God, Jake, you're in a tough spot. Scott took a sip of his coffee and looked at the table. He took a deep breath as he began to speak. Okay, there are 2 paths you can choose. The first one I will tell you as your lawyer. The second one as your friend. I looked at him and nodded. First, as the lawyer. Jake, you will likely lose if you decide to divorce or separate from Rachel. New York family law is almost always on the side of the wife. Rachel will most likely get custody of the children and the house. If you can't prove she's unfit to be a mother, the court will likely award her custody. If she objects, you can ask for custody, but the court will almost automatically give her custody. Scott took another long sip of his coffee and waved to the waitress for a refill. I was about to speak when he raised his hand for me to wait. Fresh coffee had arrived. With the kids in the house, you'll be paying a ton of stuff, most of the mortgage based on your salaries, child support until they turn 21 or graduate from university, and probably Rachel's support. It used to be called alimony, now it's spousal support. Damn, this was getting harder, but the real fun was just beginning. Scott continued with more information I needed to know. A quick lesson on divorce in New York. There are 7 grounds for divorce in the state. 1. An irreparable break in a relationship for a period of at least 6 months. This ground is usually called a no-fault divorce. To use this ground, the marriage must have been completed for at least 6 months and all economic issues including debts, how marital property will be divided, and child custody and support must be settled. 2. Cruel and inhumane treatment. To use this basis, the judge will look for specific acts of cruelty that occurred in the last 5 years. It's not enough that you and your spouse argued or didn't get along. The cruelty must be so severe that the plaintiff is physically or mentally in danger, and it is unsafe or unacceptable for him to continue living with the defendant. 3. Abandonment. To use this ground, the spouse must have left the plaintiff for at least a year or more. 2 examples of abandonment are when a spouse physically leaves the home with no intention of returning, or when a spouse refuses intimate relations with the other spouse. This is called constructive abandonment. 4. Imprisonment. To use this ground, the spouse must have been imprisoned for 3 or more consecutive years. The spouse had to be imprisoned after the marriage began. The plaintiff may use this ground while the spouse is in prison or for 5 years after the spouse is released from prison. 5. Adultery. To use this ground, the plaintiff must show that the spouse committed infidelity during the marriage. This ground can be difficult to prove because it requires evidence from someone other than the plaintiff and spouse. 6. Divorce after legal separation agreement. To use this ground, the plaintiff and defendant sign and file a valid separation agreement and live apart for a year. A separation agreement must contain certain requirements in order to be valid. 7. Divorce after separation decision. This base is used infrequently. To use this ground, the Supreme Court issues a decree of separation and the couple lives apart for a year. My eyes began to glaze over as Scott continued his lecture and talked about divorce the New York way. So Jake, the most likely grounds for you if you choose divorce are irreparable breakup or infidelity. To prove infidelity, you will need some real evidence. Either Rachel admits that she is having an affair with another person, or that whoever she's having an affair with admits it, or other evidence to prove it. I took a deep breath and looked at my friend. I knew the expression on my face wasn't the best. Scott continued. The other thing is the irreparable breakdown of your marriage. This is the one that most people cite as the main reason for their divorce. He paused for effect. You might want to think about it before you decide. I was speechless. I didn't know what to say. Scott took a deep breath and continued. Okay. I told you what I had to do as your lawyer. Now I want to talk to you as your friend. I looked up from the depths of the hell I had plunged into. I was hoping for a lifeline, something to reassure me that my life wasn't over, that the comfortable life I enjoyed with my family would somehow continue. I had to tell him, Jesus Christ, Scott, I really hope you have something in your arsenal that's better than the grim thing you just described. Buddy, you need to decide what you want. What do you mean? I want my family. I want my wife and I want my children. I want my life to continue with them as before. I get it. So what I'm going to tell you is you need to listen carefully and think. You need to decide in your mind what's most important to you. Is it your family or a little bit of your dignity and ego? What do you mean? Listen, I see all kinds of people who get very upset and want to go for maximum revenge and destruction. It's the whole scorched earth theory. They sacrifice everything just to make the other person miserable and end up making themselves miserable. Scott paused to let this sink in. The other big losers in divorce are the children. You need to decide how much you want them to suffer. My head lifted and I looked my friend straight in the eyes. What? Yes, children. Your children. They have the most to lose in this. He paused again. They'll have to get used to only seeing you a few days a month and alternating holidays. You'll have to get used to being a part-time dad. Rachel will get custody and you'll be spending a lot of time without them. You can count on that. Damn it, what should I do, Scott? What should I do? I couldn't believe what he just said. You hear stories about fathers who barely see their children. Fathers who are essentially ruined for life because of divorce. I didn't want to be one of those losers. No. Scott looked at me with a mixture of sadness and surprise. He was a good friend, but he was also a realist and saw the consequences of divorce every day. Jake, can I suggest something? Of course you can. What is it? It may seem a little strange, but I've seen it work. What? The decision is yours and yours alone. But if I were you, here's what I'd seriously consider. Please tell me. Nothing. Do nothing. Just go home and pretend you don't know anything. Go home and live your life the way you always have. Go home and enjoy your family. Go home and do all the things you always do. Come home and play with your children. Come home and be with your wife. Come home. Are you serious? Like a heart attack. You told me that you'd almost never know that Rachel was having an affair outside your marriage. You told me that you never noticed anything different. You told me that she has always been a great wife and a great mother to your children. You told me that she cares about her family and always puts you first. You told me that she's a good wife. But nothing. I told you that you should be the one to make any decision about what you want to do, and that is very true. But you should be the one to decide whether you want to ignore what you've learned for the sake of preserving your family life. Think about it. How badly do you want your family? Is it bad enough to sacrifice your knowledge that Rachel is being dishonest with you? Is it bad enough to push aside your knowledge of her affair? Is it bad enough to pretend that everything remains unchanged? We both finished our now cold coffees. The waitress gave us side glances, letting us know it was time to order something else or pay, and leave, so she could make room for paying customers. Oh my God. I exhaled as if I had been holding my breath for hours. I need to think about this. Scott stood up. I followed his example. We both tossed $20 bills on the table and headed for the door. As we walked outside, Scott turned to me and said, I need to get back to the office. Call me anytime if you want to talk. Let's meet for a beer on Friday after work and you can tell me what's on your mind. Until then, promise me you won't do anything. Okay, I promise. Look, thanks for listening and thanks for the advice. I guess I have a million things on my mind that I need to think about. We went in different directions. I walked back to the hospital and tried not to get hit by a car on the way. I returned home and took Scott's advice. I behaved no differently than any other time I came home from work. I kissed my wife and talked to my children as always. Rachel was the same as usual. We had dinner, I helped the kids with their homework, which these days is usually at their level, and then we played in the yard, shooting at the basketball net I had set up. Everything was very normal. After the kids got ready for bed and went to their rooms to read, I made it a point to just watch Rachel. I tried to remember all the things about her that attracted me: her smile, her figure, her eyes, the curve of her hips, her movements. I loved her from the moment I met her. I knew she was the woman I wanted to spend my life with, the woman I wanted to have children with. So what the hell happened? Where did we get lost? Looking at us as a family, no one would ever think we had a problem. We looked and acted like a normal family who loved each other. We held hands in public, we kissed. Children would run to us if they had problems or needed to blow their noses or be tickled. We were having fun. We were a team of 4. I walked through the house and appreciated all the many projects Rachel had completed. She was great at home decor and even renovations. The woman was tireless. She went through almost every room in our home and made many changes, from simple paint to custom furniture, doors, and even took on bathroom renovations. I was the main worker for many of these tasks, but she was the brains behind the design. Where did she find time to be with other men? Hell, sometimes I barely had time to go to the bathroom. My wife was a master of deception, but you want to know how I knew she was getting it from someone else? Fair question. At work, I often meet with colleagues to discuss cases or attend medical conferences for whatever specialty our hospital is focusing on. Our meetings usually take place in our offices or in hospital conference rooms or medical centers. Sometimes meetings take place in other places. That day we had a meeting in a small conference room at the Ritz-Carlton Hotel in Chicago. The medical conference organizers weren't from Albany and were only there for the meeting, staying at the hotel. They set up a conference room and even organized lunch for us during the neurosurgical symposium. During this lunch, I decided to go out for a few minutes to get some fresh air. I went for a walk around the block to stretch my legs and think about a complex case we had been discussing. A challenging brain tumor removal we were about to perform. When I was returning to the hotel, a taxi pulled up to the entrance and a tall man of about 35 to 40 years old in a very expensive suit got out. A woman followed him. She looked a lot like my wife. I was walking towards the same entrance as them, only about 100 feet behind them. He took her hand and they quickly walked inside the hotel. I moved quickly enough and almost caught up with them when they entered the elevator. When they got into the elevator, they turned around face to face. He put his arm around her waist and I could see very clearly that it was Rachel. She said something to him as the doors closed and he leaned in and kissed her on the lips. My world stopped. I stood there for almost 10 minutes trying to understand what I had just seen. I shook my head. I had to remember how to breathe. My chest tightened. I thought I was having a heart attack. My legs gave way and I walked over to a chair and sat down. I sat there until one of the people at our meeting walked by and asked if I would be back for the meeting. I returned but didn't hear a word that was said. It's good that minutes of the meeting were kept so that I wouldn't spoil the professional discussion. I returned home immediately after the meeting ended, expecting Rachel to pack her things to leave me. She was there, busy with the kids, and started preparing dinner. She greeted me the same way she did every night. This was a few weeks ago. Since then, I have been tormented by everything: Rachel, our marriage, our children, my life in general, how stupid I was. All of this. I was mentally destroyed, and then I decided to start making a plan. But I needed help, and that's when I went to talk to my friend Scott. Scott, I can't believe the crap Rachel is doing. After Jake came to me, I realized that his life would change. I knew he would have to do something, although I warned him that divorce would take a huge toll on the children and himself. I know that a person can only bear so much, but here's the thing: you need to decide what's most important to you and take care of that first. Everything else comes second. In Jake's case, he decided that his children were most important to him and his interests came second. So he tolerated Rachel and her other life. I hired my usual detective to do some background research on Rachel. I wanted to get a much better idea of what she was doing before I told Jake. If he knew the whole story, it could kill him. Time heals all wounds and wounds all heals. I heard this somewhere, not sure if this is true, but I know that Jake managed to swallow his pride and pretend he didn't know anything. And it's strange. If Jake hadn't seen Rachel getting into that elevator when he did, he might never have known. Rachel remained the same as she had always been. She is a wonderful mother and cares extremely about their children. She is organized and works hard. To Jake, she is the same woman he met and married 10 years ago. But now she's not the same. Jake still doesn't know what to do. Should he confront her and kick her out? Should he confront her and try to work through it through couples counseling? What if she's the one who wants to get rid of him? What about the kids? If Rachel is in love with this guy and wants to leave them for him, Jake's not sure what to do. This is where I come into play. I'm his trump card. I am his man to help him get through this hell. So I instructed my investigator to carry out the work. Wolfie is a very good investigator. Her real name is Hannah Wolfenstein, but her friends and close acquaintances call her Wolfie. She is a former NYPD detective who retired due to a knee injury. She's just over 30, divorced, tall, blonde, slim, and very beautiful. She fits well into any environment, so she is very good at observation. She also has a wide range of technical proficiency. She's my main source of information. She rarely disappoints. It's also not cheap, but as they say in this world, you get what you pay for. I called Wolfie and asked her to come to my office. When she came, I immediately felt desire just by looking at her. She has this effect on men, all men. Her knee is almost completely healed, so there are hardly any noticeable problems when walking. She came in, and after I bought her a cup of coffee, we started. Scott, how can I help you? She calls me Scott. I have another wife who cheats on her husband. This wife is married to one of my best friends. I handed her the folder of files we had collected on Rachel. It indicated her place of work, addresses, telephone numbers, a photo of Rachel, her car and license plate, and a short biography about her including height, weight, and anything else I thought would be helpful. These were things I could do legally, but Wolfie was working in an area that was more intrusive. She had the resources to dig deep into other people's lives, including their financial affairs. I took a sip of coffee and continued. Her husband spotted her at the downtown Ritz-Carlton with a man who was much more friendly than a friend should be. This guy is most likely a friend with benefits. I want to know what she's doing and who she's doing it with and for how long. Any information will help her husband decide on a possible divorce and what we use as grounds. The bottom line is that I need to have the upper hand to make sure he gets custody of the kids if it comes down to it. Wolfie nodded and took more notes as I spoke. She had done this before, and I was very confident that whatever Rachel was up to, Wolfie would figure it out. She looked at me. You know I don't work for free. I need my regular advance and my regular hourly rate. She wrinkled her nose. I'll need at least 3 hours to put together a plan and conduct an electronic search. I'll get back to you in 2 days with a more accurate estimate. Is that okay with you and your client? Great. He's a very patient man, but he wants information before he does anything. We'll talk in 2 days. Wolfie gathered her files and placed them in her large bag and stood up. I was afraid that my partial arousal was visible and she knew it. As she approached the door, she stopped and turned slightly. Do you remember that you still owe me dinner? How could I forget? She looked at my groin area and smiled. Hannah. Damn. How I hate stupid women who think they can do whatever they want with their unsuspecting husbands and get away with it. I've seen too many of these spoiled cheats on the men they rely on to support and pay for the life they want. My client is a hard-working and family-oriented man who was stunned when he accidentally saw his wife walking and holding hands with another man and kissing him in the elevator of one of the best hotels in the city center. According to Scott, he doesn't want to kick her the hell out, but he wants to know what's really going on and wants to know what options he has. I've seen this before. Based on what Scott said, the client wants to keep his family together if he can, but I know there are limits. I have seen men who are rational and logical and very reserved, and their lives go crazy and they do things they later regret. Now I need to find out who Rachel Miller is. I suspect Mrs. Miller has done this before. She is either very confident in her actions and has become a little lazy in hiding her infidelity, or this was her first time. I'm not sure, but I'll find out. I will send Scott my estimate, and once he approves, I will start working. Jake. Scott called me. His investigator has been working hard and has a report for me. I hope to hell that what I saw just has an explanation. If it's something more, I don't know what I'll do. When I arrived at Scott's office, He led me into his small conference room. I could tell by his expression that what I was about to find out was not what I had hoped for. "Jake," Scott started. "Wolfie was able to find out a lot of information. She'll talk about it, and then I think we'll need to discuss it. In short, you're right in your suspicions that Rachel is involved with another man. I'll let Wolfie tell you the rest." I turned to look at the investigator. "Mr. Miller, I began researching your wife immediately after Scott briefed me on what you wanted to know. I was able to learn a lot about Mrs. Miller, and I'm sorry to have to tell you this, but your wife has been involved with another man for a long time." I grabbed my water bottle, took a sip, and then rushed to the toilet. Water along with everything I had eaten in the last 12 hours came up into the toilet. The room spun, and I think I even lost consciousness for a few seconds. The next thing I knew, Scott and Hannah were holding my head. Scott put a towel under my chin, and she cleaned my face with a wet wipe. It took me a few minutes, but I was able to return to the meeting room. When the world stopped spinning, Scott asked if I wanted to continue or stop now and do it another time. I took a few deep breaths but told him I wanted to continue. It's better to finish it now than to drag it out. Hannah started again. "Mr. Miller, we have conducted a detailed electronic search of your wife. I must say there is actually very little information about your wife on the internet. I know she works as a web developer and therefore has the tools and ability to control what is known about her. She has a Facebook page and that's basically it. She doesn't use any other social media. Everything she posts on Facebook is family-oriented. It's all very normal, everyday information. There are a few pictures of you, her, and the kids, all very innocent, showing you doing something family-friendly. I looked into her friends on Facebook and researched them to see if there was anyone among them who was masquerading. I looked at her with a questioning expression. What I mean is there anyone among your friends on Facebook who isn't who they seem to be? This would give them the ability to send private messages to each other and then delete them so you or anyone else wouldn't know. We didn't find a single person who wasn't real, but that doesn't mean your wife didn't create a fake account under a different name, an alias. It's quite common and hard to detect if she's using that account on a device you may not know about." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Hannah looked at me and continued. "So we had to use some old methods. We attached a tracking device to your wife's car and followed her movements. For the first week, we tracked the various places she visited and excluded the obvious work, home, your children's school, the supermarket where you usually shop, places like that. Then we decided when and where we would follow Mrs. Miller to see who she was meeting and what she was doing. That's when we could get down to business. Oh my God. In the second week, we installed a listening device in Mrs. Miller's car. It could record everything said in the car. The recorder is voice-activated and configured to filter out normal car noises and road sounds. It is also configured to allow us to access it remotely to monitor conversations taking place in the car. Thanks to this, we were able to find out that Mrs. Miller was planning a meeting with Mr. Brandon Coleman. "Do you know him?" I shook my head no. She took a sip of water and continued her story. "We investigated Mr. Coleman and learned that he is a corporate attorney currently assigned to the New York State Comptroller's office. He is assigned to a procurement and contracts project. It appears that the state has decided to seek outside assistance on this project. The rest is not important. We did extensive research on Mr. Coleman and learned that he is married to Jennifer Coleman, and they live here in Albany with their daughter Ashley." Hannah gave me photographs of Brandon Coleman, Jennifer Coleman, and their daughter, as well as the house in which they live. She asked, "Is he familiar to you? Or is the house familiar to you?" I shook my head. "Not really. Could have been the man Rachel was with. Honestly, at that moment I wasn't looking at him. I was looking at her." We determined from the voice recorder in Mrs. Miller's car that she planned to meet Mr. Coleman at a hotel on the East Side last Wednesday. We were there to watch them enter the hotel and obtain these photographs of them together. She handed me some photos of Rachel with him. They held hands. It looked like they could have been intimate right there in the hotel lobby. Hannah waited until I took it all in before continuing. Once we knew who Mrs. Miller was dating, we were able to conduct a detailed background check on Mr. Coleman. We believe that he and Mrs. Miller were a couple at university before you met her. The world began to spin again. Scott handed me a paper bag and told me to breathe into it. This helped a little. Hannah looked at Scott for confirmation on whether to continue. I nodded at her to continue. I drank some water. Well, we checked the university records and determined that Mr. Coleman was in his 3rd year when Mrs. Miller was a freshman. They dated for 2 years. At one point, even living together for a year. That's when they broke up and Mrs. Miller moved to a dorm. I believe not long after that, you met her. Were you able to find out why they broke up? Yes. Mr. Coleman went to law school in North Carolina. He met his future wife there and they married around the time he graduated. Their child was born about 6 months after their wedding. He got her pregnant? Yes. When did Rachel start seeing him again? We're not entirely sure, but when we checked his financial records, we determined that he has a separate bank account that is not linked to his other accounts. I believe he is keeping this account secret from his wife. It is from this account he pays for a hotel room almost every week. Does Rachel have a secret bank account that she hasn't told me about? Hannah paused a moment before answering. Yes, she has one. It's at the credit union near her office. We've determined there's about $40,000 in that account. I looked at both Scott and Hannah. How the hell did she get that kind of money? I do our taxes and it's pretty simple. We save money every month, but not in the wrong place. We believe she was splitting money from her paychecks into 2 deposits. One, approximately 75% of her salary goes into your joint account and the other 25% goes into her own account. She also has a separate credit card at this credit union. She also has a spare phone, a flip phone, which she uses to call Mr. Coleman. Oh my God, my wife leads a double life. What the hell? Hannah turned to look at Scott. He looked back and nodded his head. Then he spoke. Jake, we have more information you need to know. And this is the hardest part of all. How the hell can this get any worse? Jesus, Scott, how could this get worse? Well, it's not what I was hoping for, but I think you need to know. You have a right to know. Now I was really puzzled. Okay, tell me what it is. Scott, with the most dejected expression I've ever seen on his face, said, Go ahead, Wolfie. Tell him. Mr. Miller, when I learn that long-term infidelity is involved, I automatically expand my search parameters to include other family members. Last year, you asked the children's school to take cheek scrapings for DNA in the event of a kidnapping or other disaster. Well, we have accessed your children's DNA and compared it to yours and Mrs. Miller's. The results for Mrs. Miller were as you would expect. She is the mother of the children. When we compared your DNA to the children's, we determined that you are not their biological father. What? Sir, I'm sorry to say, but you were not Tyler and Madison's biological father. Couldn't believe my ears. It's impossible. You must be wrong. Scott intervened. Jake, I know it's hard to believe. We used your DNA from your paper coffee cup the last time you were here, and we ran the tests twice. But we are confident that the children's father is someone else. My planet has stopped spinning again. I couldn't breathe and was ready to faint. The room started spinning again and I had to lie down on the floor. While Hannah was telling me about DNA testing, my whole world came crashing down. I have an unfaithful wife and I have no children. As you can imagine, it took me a while to process what Scott and Hannah told me. She prepared a very good written report and even put it on a flash drive for me. Scott had a complete copy for his files. He believed he would need it later for a divorce. I had a question for Hannah. Were you able to determine who the father of my children, Rachel's children, is? We haven't gotten that far, but if you want, we can do certain things to collect another person's DNA and compare it to the children's DNA. I nodded to her. Please do this. I want to know who the father of these children is. I'm guessing it's Brandon Coleman. Hannah looked at Scott and then at me. We believe he is the children's biological father. Okay, do it. I want to know. I don't want to know how you do it, but please find out and tell me. We finished and Hannah gathered up all her things and put them in a folder and handed them to Scott. She got up and started to leave. Mr. Miller, if it costs you anything other than short periods of time with Mr. Coleman, I think Mrs. Miller really loves you very much. She shows all the outward signs of a woman who loves her husband. I know it's not a big deal now, but think about it before you do anything. And one more piece of advice. If I may, please don't do anything stupid and end up in jail. Hannah turned and looked at Scott and motioned for him to follow her. They went out into the corridor outside the meeting room and spoke quietly. I saw her nod in my direction a few times and then kiss Scott on the cheek before leaving. I assumed they were friends with occasional benefits. Scott came back. We sat in silence for several minutes. Then he stood up. "Come on, you'll come with me. He's so good at it." I know what you're thinking. Is it normal to be married and have a lover? Yes, it's normal, at least for me, and quite common as far as I know for married people to love someone other than their partners. It happens more often than you think, but not all people who fall in love with others end their marriages. I love Jake very much. I'm just in love with Brandon at the same time. You think I'm crazy and just a cheating wife? Well, you can think whatever you want, but this is my life. Jake doesn't know about Brandon, and Brandon's wife doesn't know about me, and we both want to keep it that way. We spend one day a week together. That's all. We've been doing this for many years. I loved Brandon even before we both married Jake and Jennifer, before we both had children. Brandon met Jennifer while he was in law school and she became pregnant. He did the right thing and married her. Our relationship then ended and then I met Jake. We started dating and I fell in love with him. We got married and soon after I met Brandon again. We kind of started seeing each other again. We never stopped loving each other. But now we both had other commitments and other lives. I know it was wrong, but I couldn't stop seeing Brandon. Jake was my husband and I loved him very much. But Brandon was, I thought, my true love. The problem is that we both had spouses to whom we were attached, and therefore our love for each other took a backseat. We started meeting once a week and it became a regular thing. A few months later, I missed my period and realized I was pregnant. Jake was delighted with the news that he would become a father. I didn't know who the father was, Jake or Brandon. At that moment, it didn't matter. Pregnancy was wonderful. I wanted to have intimate time every day, morning and evening, and I did. After Tyler was born, Brandon and I took a break, given the demands of being new parents. Jake became a father like a duck to water. He's a wonderful father. This man knows no fatigue. He would work all day at the hospital and then come home and take over so I could shower and rest. I got used to being a mother, and soon things got better and I was able to walk and chew gum at the same time. When Tyler was about a year old, I became pregnant with Madison. These 3 years were a challenge, but it was a wonderful time. My husband is my hero. He makes my life with him and the kids a joy. My time with Brandon is the distraction I need. He makes me feel good and he does what Jake can't do for my psyche. This does not mean that Jake is worse as a husband, person, or man. No, not at all. They are different. I need both. I can only have Brandon in limited quantities. Jennifer takes up most of his time, and rightfully so. I have all of Jake. He shows me every day that he loves me and the kids. I know that we are his world. Jake. I had to ask Scott to drive me home in my car. He took a taxi back to his office. I walked into the house and just walked around looking at things as if I had never seen them before. I walked into Tyler and Madison's bedrooms and looked at them. I remembered all the times I read them bedtime stories, took care of them when they had colds, changed their dirty diapers when they were babies. I carried them around the house. I walked with them on the floor at night so that they would fall asleep. They were my children. They bore my last name. My name was on their birth certificates. How could Rachel lie to me so much for so long? Why did she do this? If she didn't want to have children with me, why didn't she tell me? Why did we even get married? We have painted and decorated the kids' bedrooms several times, when they were newborns and then again after they started school. We redecorated the interior, added desks, changed the paint, and made the rooms their own. They helped choose some furniture. I walked into our family room. The walls were covered with framed photographs of us as a family. Some were from holidays we took, and there were more formal family photos taken at Christmas. It documented the growth of the children and us as a family. Why did she have to ruin everything? Why did she have to turn our marriage into a lie? Why did she have to take away from me what was most important to me? Do I hate her now? I loved her and now I hate her. Why did she have to be so cruel? I do not know what to do. I have no idea what I can do. Scott was right. Rachel. I returned home after meeting Brandon, shortly before Jake returned. I always took a shower after being with Brandon. I can always see where Jake is on his phone. I use the Find My iPhone application. It works very well and he always carries his phone with him. I really want to see where he is, especially when he's out with the kids. I'm worried about them. In fact, Brandon and I are only interested in each other for companionship. I love Jake and I know that deep down Brandon loves Jennifer. Getting pregnant wasn't Brandon's plan, but when it happened, he accepted it and did the right thing. She is a very good person and I know they have a good time together. Brandon and I have the same needs. We both need passion, which we don't always have time for at home. Do not misunderstand me. Jake is a wonderful lover. He knows how to please me, but our life is largely determined by the demands of family life. We have intimate time a couple of times a week, usually on the weekends. Jake is no novice in bed. He's a very capable lover and gives me a lot of pleasure every time. You want to know why, if my life with my husband is so good, I have Brandon as a lover? Good question. It's really simple because I want him to be my lover. I need the attention he gives me. Brandon and I were a couple before Jake and before Jennifer. He was the man I thought I would marry. I was in love with him and still am. But life doesn't always work out the way you dream. The reality was that Brandon and I were not going to marry each other, so I chose second place. I met Jake and married him. Jake is a wonderful person. He is sweet, loyal, considerate, hardworking, and a great father. He will work until he drops to do anything I ask of him. So you're asking, why isn't Jake enough for me? Why would I be with Brandon again? Because I want it. When Brandon and I broke up, it wasn't because I didn't love him or didn't want to be with him or didn't want to have a family with him. It happened because he got Jennifer pregnant and he had to marry her. Jake and Brandon complement each other. They both satisfy my needs. They both make me a very happy woman. With Jake, I receive love and respect. He is so good, so honest, and such an ideal husband that any woman would be lucky to have him. I'm lucky to have him. The man is thoughtful and attentive, and the physical closeness I feel with him warms me throughout my body. He is the perfect husband, the perfect father, and we have a deep connection that makes him mine. But I also have a deep connection with Brandon. The way I feel when I'm with him is something I don't want to be without. When I feel him touch me, I enter a zone unlike anything else I have ever felt. He can do whatever he wants to me and I'm okay with that. Sometimes he wants it passionate and intense, and I love those times. Other times he wants to go slow and gentle and I like that too. We don't talk about our families that much. Our time together is purely for ourselves, far from everything else. No worries about family, work, or anything else. Just about the feeling we have with each other during those few hours. Once finished, we shower, get dressed, and return to the reality of our lives. Before I leave Brandon, I always check my phone to see where Jake is. I don't need a chance meeting in a place that's hard to explain. I return to my reality and Brandon returns to his. This is a routine that has worked well for many years. I don't plan to change it in the near future. Jake. It's been almost 2 weeks since Scott and Hannah told me about what Rachel had been doing our entire life together. I feel so stupid. I was used by her, and all this time she told me that she loved me. All this time we shared life, family, home, and future. That's what I thought. My hopes and dreams disappeared like smoke in the blink of an eye. My entire married life has been a lie. Now the problem is that I don't know what to do. How can I deal with this? When I look at Rachel, I see the woman I married. She's sweet and charming, beautiful, talented, hardworking, and a wonderful mother to our children. Her kids, children of Brandon Coleman. I have no children. I feel so violated. I really can't talk about this with anyone. 3 days ago, I had a drink with Scott and he recommended I see a psychologist. He gave me the name of one and even made an appointment for me. Let's see if this helps. Rachel. I've noticed in the last couple of weeks that Jake is very distracted. I have to tell him something several times for him to hear and understand me. He practically does not pay attention to Madison. She has to pull on his hand for him to pay attention to her. He apologizes for not listening, but then a few minutes later he goes back into his own world. It seems he's begun spending a lot of extra time at work and missed school meetings that we had planned to attend together. I go alone. He gets up very early in the morning and goes for a run. He usually runs for about 45 minutes and then returns home and showers. Lately, he runs for an hour and a half before returning home. He barely touches his food at dinner and doesn't interact with me or the kids more than minimally. Jake. I went to a meeting with a psychologist, Dr. Marilyn Snow. She is a very nice lady, approximately 60 years old, and has a very calm approach. I explained to her the situation I was in and then told her how it made me feel. She asked if I had any plans for the future. What am I going to do? Am I going to confront Rachel? Am I going to file for divorce? Am I contemplating forgiveness? I said I'm still trying to come up with a plan. I told her that my friend and lawyer Scott advised me not to do anything until I was sure of my actions. Dr. Snow agreed that this sounded like a good short-term plan, but what about the long-term? I still didn't have an answer. I knew that if the betrayal had been short-term, I probably would have forgiven it. But to find out that she never actually stopped seeing her real lover and that he was the father of her children, well, that was a blow that's hard to recover from. Even if I stayed with Rachel, how could I ever trust her again? If I accepted the way things turned out, I would have been content knowing that I would be her second choice in life, raising other people's children, believing her deception throughout our entire life together. If Coleman and his wife divorced, would Rachel run away with him? Here's my question. How can I be happy now knowing what I know? Scott. It's been over a month since I last saw Jake, and today he wants to meet me in my office. He says he wants to discuss his tentative plan for dealing with Rachel. I met him at the door and we immediately went to the meeting room. Jake took off his jacket and I handed him a bottle of water. He opened it and took a sip. So, what do you want to talk about today? Scott. I've been struggling ever since Hannah told me all about what Rachel was really doing. I went to the psychologist you recommended. She helped me look at things from a different perspective. I've been trying to be honest with myself. I've been thinking about this whole thing for a long time and I think I've made a few decisions. Okay, how can I help? Jake began to explain in detail what he wanted to do. His plan was straightforward and simple, but at the same time there were some special issues that required attention. My task was to start processing the documents and be ready to file them in court. Jake had already met with his banker and had a long conversation with his employer. Now everything depended on these details and timing. I'll need Wolfie's help in executing the plan. 2 weeks later, Jake explained, "Oh Lord Jesus, it's so hot. Turn on the air conditioner." So 2 days ago I took the train from Albany to New York, then the subway to JFK. My Air Canada flight took almost 8 hours to reach my destination. I had to change planes and had a connection of about 2 hours in Montreal. Welcome to Canada, and more precisely to the city of Toronto. It's my new home for now. I got a new job with a medical consortium working on a major healthcare project here in Ontario. So you ask how this happened? In my field, we're constantly sought after for medical projects around the world. My boss was always fending off people trying to poach our surgeons, but there are times when it's beneficial for a surgeon to move to another hospital for a specific project. This was such a case. So I took a job with a British-Canadian medical group working on a major neurosurgical center in Toronto. The work will be intense, but the rewards will be great. The salary and benefits are incredible. My basic salary is 180,000 Canadian dollars per month, which is about 135,000 US dollars, plus there are benefits. The real advantage is that there are significant tax advantages in Canada for medical professionals. Yes, you read that right, substantial tax breaks for doctors. I don't plan to stay here for more than 2 years. Culturally, it's not a place where I would feel uncomfortable long-term, but who knows? Things could change. I don't have a set schedule other than to work and make as much money as I can. The climate here is very different from New York. It'll take some time to get used to. The job includes an apartment and a car. The apartment is ultra-modern in a high-rise building with underground parking and all amenities. The car, a BMW X5, black of course, is very fast. It's heaven and earth compared to my old Honda Pilot I had in Albany. The company assigned me an assistant, Emily. She's Canadian, about 28 or 30 years old, tall, slender, with long dark brown hair and black glasses. She's attractive in a quietly sophisticated way. Her accent suggests she comes from a more privileged background and is very well educated. She has a bachelor's degree in political science and a master's degree in international relations. In addition, she speaks French fluently, which will be priceless in Canada. She met me at the airport and took me to the apartment. I didn't bring many things with me, just my old leather briefcase and one suitcase. I decided that if I needed anything else, I would just buy it. On the way to the apartment, she talked almost non-stop about Canada, the city, and the people here. She was both critical and flattering of Toronto. I realized that this new job would be both challenging and possibly fun. When I left Albany, I knew all hell was going to break loose, but that was no longer my problem. Rachel and her boyfriend caused the trouble, let them deal with it themselves. I felt sorry for the children most of all. I would have taken them with me, but I knew that no judge would ever agree to separate them from their mother, especially since I wasn't their biological father. But you want to know how it ended in Albany? Scott. My meeting with Jake took a couple of hours. He brought some notes and a folder of documents to discuss. He wanted me to coordinate several things for him at the same time. This is the end for Rachel Miller and Brandon Coleman. Hannah found out where and when Rachel and Coleman usually met each week. Sometimes it was a hotel on the outskirts of town next to a FedEx facility. Not one of the big or famous hotels, but one that they could afford. The magic of this place was that it was close to the highway and easy to get to. Coleman had a friend who would sometimes give him a bedroom in his apartment to keep their expenses down, but he didn't provide towels. Jake told me he was going to pack his things in the morning and head to the train station. He is leaving the country. He didn't tell me where he was going, but I didn't need to know as long as I had his email address. He would take the children to school, and after Rachel left for work, he would return home, take his bag, and call a taxi to the station. This is where Wolfie comes into the plan. She had to have a package of documents and other information for Rachel and be ready to deliver them. Jake wanted us to wait until they were in the hotel room and Coleman would probably be in the middle of their encounter with Rachel. The plan was to knock on the hotel room door, telling them it was hotel security and asking them to open the door. When they opened the door, Wolfie would ask Rachel for ID. Once she took a photo of it, she would hand Rachel a package with the usual "you have been served" statement. Wolfie was very good at this and managed to take a photo of both of them before leaving. The envelope for Rachel contained the usual divorce papers, as well as copies of DNA test results showing that Jake is not the children's father but Coleman is. There were transcripts of phone calls between Rachel and Coleman arranging their meetings and a couple of photographs to let them know they were caught. I should have waited for Wolfie to call and let me know that she had handed over the documents. Then my next task was to call Jennifer Coleman and let her know everything that was going on. I invited her to come to my office and I would be happy to brief her on everything we had learned. Jake wanted to sue Coleman to get back some of the money he had spent over the past 8 years raising Tyler and Madison, but he knew that was unlikely. We talked about the pros and cons of this, and Jake didn't want Jennifer and her daughter to suffer because her husband was an idiot. Jake called me yesterday and told me that today was supposed to be D-Day. Jake called it that because it was the day he was leaving, he would go to his new life. I called Wolfie immediately and she came to my office first thing today to get the paperwork and finalize her plan. Wolfie was very excited when she arrived at my office. I smiled at her and asked what's got you so excited. She grinned widely. This is about to be her reckoning for being with a man who thought he was her baby daddy and who dedicated his life to her and what he thought were his kids. She deserves every bit of what she's going to get. We sat at the conference table and I put everything in large envelopes and marked the names on them. Wolfie and I chatted for a bit, had some coffee, and then she went off to look around the building where Rachel worked. Shortly after noon, she called me and told me that Rachel was leaving. All I had to do was wait and be ready to call Jennifer Coleman. Rachel. I pulled into the hotel parking lot and I saw that Brandon was already there. His SUV was parked at the edge of the lot. I parked and got out of the car. He came out and we met at the side door of the hotel. He already had the room key. I kissed him on the lips and we held hands as we went inside and took the elevator. Jake had barely spoken to me over the past few weeks, and I was desperate for Brandon's attention. And then there was a loud knock on the door. I heard in a very loud voice, "Mrs. Rachel Miller, I know you're in there. Please open the door." We both stopped and looked at each other. Then at the door. "What the heck?" I muttered. "Mrs. Miller, open the door or hotel security will open it." "Oh, Brandon," I said. He tried to find his pants and shirt, and I grabbed everything I could find and started getting dressed. The knocking continued. "Mrs. Miller, open the door now." Wait, I'll open it." Brandon actually opened the door but left the chain on so it couldn't open more than a few inches. As he did so, we heard, "Mr. Coleman, please open the door all the way or we will open it for you." Brandon looked at me, and when he saw that I was almost dressed, he closed the door, removed the chain, and opened it a little wider. The woman who had been banging on the door and yelling at us came inside and looked at me. "Are you Mrs. Rachel Miller?" She had some kind of badge on her belt. I nodded. "I need you to say yes or no, please." "Yes," I said. She came closer. "I need to see some form of identification." I looked around and found my bag, took out my driver's license, and handed it to her. She took a photo of it with her mobile phone. Then she handed me a large envelope. "You have been served with a subpoena." She turned to Brandon and handed him an envelope saying, "Mr. Brandon Coleman, you have been served with a subpoena." She stepped back and quickly took a photo of both of us, then turned and walked away. What the hell was that? I muttered as I looked at the envelope. I knew my world had just collapsed. I realized that Jake had found out about Brandon. His silence over the past few weeks now made sense. Suddenly the room began to spin and I seemed to lose consciousness. The next thing I remember is waking up lying on the bed. Brandon sat in a chair looking at his cell phone. I stood up and hurried to the bathroom, rushing inside. As soon as I reached the toilet, I vomited. I waited there until I could compose myself, then returned to the room and gathered my things. "I have to go home," I said aloud. I left the room without even looking at Brandon. Somehow I made it home without causing an accident and went inside. Jake, where are you, dear?" I called out, searching every room in the house, even the children's rooms. He wasn't there. I returned to the kitchen, and that's when I saw a white envelope placed on the island with my name on it. I opened it, and there was one piece of paper and Jake's wedding ring. "Crap," I muttered as I unfolded the paper and read, "Rachel, by now you should know that I know the whole truth about your long-term affair with Brandon Coleman. I know that you and he were together before we got married. If you have not yet looked at the documents you were given, you should do so soon. There you will see that I know I am not Tyler and Madison's father. You gave this honor to Brandon Coleman. This is what hurts the most, not being the father of the children I tried to love and raise. Your deception is what ruined everything. For this, I will never be able to forgive you. What are our paths now?" Well, I left. I took little with me, so the house and everything else are left to you to decide. Scott has some paperwork for you later, but I have given up my interests in the house and all our other things. Considering how well you deceived me for so long, I'm sure you'll figure it out. You want to know how I found out about you and Brandon Coleman? It happened completely by accident. I was at a meeting at the same hotel where you and he used to meet. I was walking during a break and saw you and him get into the elevator. You turned to kiss him. The expression on your face, the same one you sometimes gave me when I thought you loved me. How wrong I was. I will never contact you again in any form, so that you can move on with your life and I can move on with mine. I'm sorry that Tyler and Madison will suffer the most from all of this. Your secret life will affect them. Perhaps they will be able to recognize their real father and he will be a good father to them. I will truly miss them. Goodbye, Jake. I dropped the letter on the tabletop and sat down on the sofa in the living room. I took out my cell phone and called Jake. "The number you dialed is not in service. Please check the number and try again." "Crap," I muttered again. I called his office. The receptionist told me that Jake had left the hospital. She didn't know where he was going or what he was going to do. "Crap," I muttered once more. Finally, I called his mother. She had no idea what I was talking about. I thanked her and hung up. Crap, I sighed. Finally, I opened the envelope with all the documents and started looking through them. Everything was there, my stupidity from the last 10 years or more laid out in black and white, along with a couple of color photographs. There were also DNA test results. I never had the children's DNA tested, but I knew they were Brandon's when they started to get older and their facial features changed from those of babies. What have I done? Jake emailed Scott and reported on how the discovery of Rachel's affair went. It was a difficult time, but I knew my life with her was over. I could never look at her again and believe that she ever truly loved me. I was her second choice. When I found out that Coleman was the father of the children, well, that solved everything. I should have walked away and not looked back. I've been in Canada for a month now and I've practically adapted. I called my mother and father and told them what had happened. And although they were saddened by it all, they understood that I could not tolerate being humiliated by Rachel. I'm still young. I will find a new woman to share my life with. Scott said the situation with Brandon Coleman and his wife Jennifer was tense. She called Scott and then came to his office, and Scott told her everything he had learned about her husband's long-term affair with Rachel. She had not yet made up her mind, as far as he knew, about kicking him out. For now, she was just processing the information. Rachel came to Scott and demanded to know where I was. He didn't know himself, of course, so he didn't have to lie to her. Scott made her sign some documents to submit to the court, divorce papers, and one specific request I wanted the court to grant. I wanted the court to order my name removed from Tyler and Madison's birth certificates. I wanted Brandon Coleman's name on there. After some haggling with the judge and the presentation of DNA test results, the court granted my request. This meant that there would never be any legal issues regarding who is responsible for them. Life here so far is pretty good in Canada. Rachel, being a single parent isn't all it's cracked up to be. I still have a lot to do to take care of the children and the house without Jake. I have no one to share my work with. My dad would come over to do some minor repairs that Jake would do. Dad comes in, does what he came for, chats with the children if they are there, and leaves. He hardly talks to me. My mother and father found out why Jake left. They knew I was in love with Brandon before Jake, but they decided it was all over when Brandon married Jennifer. They had no idea that I had been dating Brandon this entire time. Brandon is on a very short leash himself. I haven't been with him since that day at the hotel when everything went to hell. I don't know what to do. If the children get to know him, is this even a good idea? The house and most of our savings are mine. I still need to work and pay bills. The court found that Jake was not financially responsible for the children because they were not his, and I kept this a secret from him. As for my support, the money in the bank belongs to me and I can use it as I wish. Plus, I still have my secret bank account. Well, not so secret. Jake knew about this. I think I really screwed up here. What should I do now? 6 months later, my life went on. I miss Rachel and especially the children, but when I think about her, I'm just angry at her and at myself for screwing up our entire marriage. So I try my best to stay busy and not think about her. My social life resumed slowly, but it happened. I've gotten to know a lot of the people I work with and discovered some very talented people who work here for a variety of reasons. Many are here for the money. Many came here to experience a different way of life and culture, and some came here to recover from a bad experience. I'm here for all these reasons. Last month, I took an adventure ride through the Canadian Rockies to Banff on a motorcycle I bought, a used BMW F800 GS, and equipped it with some touring options. There is a motorcycle club here that organizes weekend trips, so I signed up and went to have fun and see more of the country, not just an expensive city. Emily told me that she really wanted to do something like this, so I invited her to come with us. She had never ridden a motorcycle before, and this was my first time taking a passenger. Oh, what fun we had. We had a great time. The organizer thought we were a couple, so when we got to our destination, there was only one room available with one bed for us, and the hotel was full. We had to share. It was a little awkward at first, but we managed. I suggested sleeping on the floor, but she told me that was ridiculous and that we should sleep in the same bed. In the morning, I woke up with my arm around her waist. I didn't mean to do that, but that's how we ended up. The most important thing for me was that I was excited, very excited. It wouldn't go away. I tried to think of anything to make it go away, but to no avail. Emily was still asleep, but she was moving a little, and her backside was close to me. I slid back in bed and went to the bathroom before anything really awkward happened. When I left, she was already up and getting dressed. She wasn't wearing a bra under her t-shirt, and her form moved as she moved. She looked at me, noticing my gaze, and said, "Have you never seen a woman before?" Then she took off her t-shirt and went to the bathroom. I heard the water turn on, and then, "Are you coming or not?" This was the beginning. After that, everything changed. 18 months later, Emily and I returned to Vancouver to visit her parents. They actually met me last Christmas when we came over for the holidays. Her father is a banker and her mother is a teacher. They are wealthy people approaching retirement. They were interested in learning more about the American I was going to bring home to introduce to them. Her dad wanted to get to know me better, so they went to the local pub for a beer or two and to talk. A couple of hours later, they returned and her father was smiling and noticeably more favorable about me. I'm sure he shared what he learned with her mom. Now it's summer and we're here again with big news for her parents. Emily and I are moving to Australia. Well, not back for me since I've never lived there before. I have a new job at a company for a major medical project in Melbourne. The pay is great and we decided to rent a house first and then maybe buy a place in a couple of years, depending on where we are. We want a house with at least 3 bedrooms, and Emily'd like a house with 2 bathrooms so we don't have to share with guests. She's so thoughtful. The other big news is that Emily's pregnant and due in November. Therefore, we want to move and settle down, settle medical issues. Oh yes, and get married. Yes, and it's also about a new car. Rachel. I have looked for Jake on the internet almost every day since he left. I still have the letter he left in the kitchen for me. The children were devastated that the father they knew had left without a word to them. What could he even say to them to explain? "Sorry, children, but I'm not really your father. Your mother is a lying cheat and I'm leaving?" Yes, that would work well. I know I made this mess. I started seeing a therapist once a week and will probably continue as long as my health insurance covers it. She says I was fooling myself into thinking I could have both men at the same time without consequences. She said that I had set Jake up to fail as a husband and father, and that was why he was doomed to leave. She advised me to apologize to Jake and my children. It would be nice if I could find him. I don't have the money to hire a private investigator, so I asked his family from time to time if they could kindly tell me how to contact him. Jake's father tells me to go to hell. His mother doesn't talk to me at all. We moved to a smaller house, cheaper to maintain. The kids don't like this place, but it's what we can afford. I drive Jake's old Honda Pilot. It is still reliable and works well. Jake. I tried very hard to forget the period of my life when I thought that I was the happiest person on earth. All this continued until it happened. If it weren't for my ex-wife's chance encounter with her lover that day at the hotel, I might never have known the truth. But I found out and I had to do something. 10 years of deception is not forgivable. How can you do this and look into the eyes of another person day after day, say that you love him while betraying him, taking away his love and giving it to another? How can you lie to your own children? I'm certainly not perfect, and many will criticize me for the way I handled Rachel and her betrayal. It was the only thing I could do and still be myself. My biggest regrets are the children Tyler and Madison. I hope that they were able to know their real father and that he could love them the same way I loved them. Rachel killed my love. She poisoned the source. I couldn't look at Tyler and Madison knowing that their only reason for existing was to deceive me through their mother. They deserve better. I will do my best every day to be a good father to my child with Emily. Scott. Jake's actions were radical. I thought he would regret leaving the children even though they weren't his. He was in the delivery room when they were born and he raised them. He was the man they called Dad. He changed dirty diapers, fed them, rocked them to sleep, and was there for their first words and steps. But I saw a friend who was deeply, deeply hurt by the betrayal of the woman who promised and swore to love him. She betrayed him in the most fundamental way. The only way it could have been worse was if she took a gun and shot him in the head. I understand why Jake left. As his friend and lawyer, I supported him. I still get calls from Rachel asking me to tell her where he is and asking him to call her or come home. I sent a few of them until Jake told me to stop sending them, and that's what I did. Every 3 to 4 months I receive a short email from Jake to find out where he is and what's going on in his life. I know that he is leaving Canada for Australia. I know he has a new woman in his life and her name is Emily. I promised not to tell Rachel anything. I'm happy for Jake. He set up an education account for Tyler and Madison to help pay for college or university when the time comes. As a trustee, I'll make sure they get the money when the time comes. Personally, I got married, yes, you guessed it, Wolfie. Well, her real name is Hannah. She's pregnant and we're having a baby in December. It's better to forget her nickname by the time our child begins to understand what it means. We don't want to scare the baby. Rachel. The therapist keeps telling me that I need to face reality. You can't have it both ways, Rachel, she says during our sessions. You made choices that hurt everyone involved. Jake, the children, Brandon's family, and ultimately yourself. She's right, of course. I destroyed the best thing that ever happened to me. Jake was everything a woman could want in a husband, loyal, hardworking, devoted to his family. He loved Tyler and Madison as if they were his own blood, because to him they were. I took that away from him and I took him away from them. Brandon has been trying to call me, but I don't answer. His wife Jennifer found out everything, and from what I hear through mutual acquaintances, their marriage is hanging by a thread. She's considering divorce, which would leave Brandon free, but the irony is that I'm no longer sure I want him. What we had was based on lies and secrecy. Now that it's exposed, it feels tainted and ugly. The children ask about Jake constantly. Tyler, now 9, has become withdrawn and angry. His grades are slipping at school. Madison, at 7, still doesn't understand why Daddy Jake went away. She cries for him at night sometimes. I have to lie to them again, telling them that Daddy had to go away for work, that he still loves them. But how can I explain that their entire lives have been built on deception? I tried to contact Jake's parents again last week. His mother hung up on me. His father was more direct. You destroyed my son's life. He gave you everything and you threw it away for some cheap thrill. Don't ever contact us again. The phone went dead. The house feels too big and too empty without Jake. Every corner reminds me of the life we built together, the family photos on the mantle, the growth chart marks on the kitchen door frame where he measured the kids each birthday, the garden he planted in the backyard that's now overgrown with weeds. I've been working longer hours to avoid being home, but that means less time with Tyler and Madison, who need me more than ever. It's a vicious cycle. The guilt is overwhelming. Some nights I lie awake wondering if Jake was right to leave. Maybe the children would be better off without me too. Jake. The Australian medical system is quite different from what I was used to in the States, but the work is challenging and rewarding. The Royal Melbourne Hospital has offered me a permanent position as head of neurosurgery, which would mean staying here long-term. Emily and I are seriously considering it. Emily's pregnancy is progressing well. She's in her 2nd trimester now, and we found out we're having a daughter. We've started talking about names. Emily likes Grace, and I find myself drawn to Hope, perhaps because that's what this new life represents for me. Sometimes I still wake up thinking about Tyler and Madison. I wonder if they understand why I left, if they hate me for abandoning them. The rational part of my brain knows I made the right choice. They weren't my biological children, and staying would have meant living a lie forever. But the heart doesn't always listen to reason. Emily knows about my past, of course. I told her everything early in our relationship. She's been incredibly understanding and patient, especially when I have moments of doubt or sadness. You can't save people who don't want to be saved, she told me once. Rachel made her choices. You made yours. Now we make ours together. We're planning a small wedding ceremony next month, before Emily gets too far along in her pregnancy. Her parents are flying in from Vancouver, and a few colleagues from the hospital will attend. It won't be the elaborate affair my wedding to Rachel was, but it will be honest and real qualities my first marriage lacked. I've started putting together a trust fund for our daughter's education. It's something I learned from watching Scott handle Tyler and Madison's fund. I want to make sure our child has every opportunity in life, and that she knows her father will always be there for her, something I couldn't guarantee the children I thought were mine. Brandon. The fallout from that day at the hotel has been devastating. Jennifer filed for divorce within 2 weeks of finding out about Rachel. She's seeking full custody of Ashley and half of everything we own. Her lawyer is ruthless. They're painting me as an unfit father who betrayed his family for years. I've tried to reach out to Rachel, but she won't take my calls. I understand why. Our affair brought nothing but destruction to everyone involved. What I thought was love now seems selfish and destructive. I destroyed my marriage, hurt my daughter, and contributed to the destruction of another family. The worst part is Ashley. She's only 10, but she knows something is very wrong. She asks why mommy cries all the time, why daddy sleeps in the guest room, why we're moving to a smaller apartment. How do you explain to a child that her father is a selfish coward who threw away everything good in his life? I hired a private investigator to find Jake Miller, thinking I could somehow make amends, explain myself, maybe even offer to pay him back for the years he spent raising my children. But the investigator came back empty-handed. Jake Miller has disappeared completely. New identity, new country, new life. Smart man. The irony isn't lost on me. I spent years sneaking around to be with Rachel, lying to my wife, living a double life. Now I'm alone, facing divorce papers and custody battles, while Jake, the man I wronged most, is building a new life somewhere with someone who actually deserves him. Tyler. I'm older now, almost 10, and I understand more than the adults think I do. I know Jake isn't my real dad. I heard mom talking to her therapist on the phone. I know he left because mom was with another man, my real father apparently. But here's what the adults don't understand. Jake is my dad. He's the one who taught me to ride a bike, who helped with my homework, who came to every soccer game even when he was tired from surgery. He's the one who checked for monsters under my bed and read me stories every night. I don't care about DNA or biology. I care that my dad left without saying goodbye. I care that he's somewhere in the world and doesn't want to see me anymore. Madison doesn't understand. She still thinks he's coming back. But I know better. Adults don't come back once they leave like this. Sometimes I hate mom for what she did. Sometimes I hate my real father for existing. But mostly I just miss my dad. The one who raised me, who loved me, who I thought would always be there. The one who taught me that family isn't about blood. It's about showing up every day and caring. I wish I could tell him that it's okay if he wants to start over. I wish I could tell him I understand why he had to go. I wish I could tell him I love him and I hope he's happy wherever he is. But I can't because he's gone and I don't think he's ever coming back. Jake. 2 years have passed since I left Albany. Emily and I are married now, living in a beautiful house in Melbourne with our daughter Grace, who just turned 6 months old. She has Emily's dark hair and my eyes, and when she smiles, it lights up the entire room. I rarely think about my old life anymore, though sometimes when I'm holding Grace, feeding her or rocking her to sleep, I remember doing the same things with Tyler and Madison. The memory doesn't hurt as much as it used to. It's more like remembering a dream that felt real at the time. Emily went back to work part-time last month, and I've been enjoying the days when it's just Grace and me. There's something healing about caring for a child who is truly yours, who exists because of genuine love rather than deception. Every milestone feels earned and honest. We received Christmas cards from Scott last December. He and Hannah have a son now, and he looks happy in the family photo they included. Scott's brief letter mentioned that Rachel has moved to a smaller house and is seeing a therapist. He didn't mention the children specifically, but I assume they're adapting as children do. I don't feel vindicated or satisfied by Rachel's struggles. If anything, I feel sorry for Tyler and Madison, who lost the only father they ever knew because of their mother's choices. But I also know that staying would have been worse for everyone. Living a lie corrodes the soul, and children sense dishonesty even when they can't articulate it. Emily and I are discussing having another child, maybe in a year or 2. We want Grace to have a sibling, and we want to build the kind of family I thought I had before, one based on truth, commitment, and genuine love. The kind of family where children can grow up secure in the knowledge that their parents chose each other and chose them every single day. Australia has been good to us. The weather is beautiful, the people are friendly, and the medical community has welcomed me with open arms. We're buying a larger house next year. One with a proper yard where Grace can play, and maybe her future siblings too. Sometimes, late at night when I'm checking on Grace in her crib, I think about the strange turns life takes. If I hadn't gone to that medical conference in Chicago, if I hadn't decided to take a walk, if I hadn't seen Rachel with Brandon in that elevator, I might still be living the lie, still believing I was the father to children who weren't mine, still married to a woman who loved someone else. The truth was devastating when I first learned it, but now I see it as liberation. It freed me to find real love, to become a real father, to build a life based on honesty rather than deception. Rachel gave me the greatest gift of all by betraying me. She set me free to find Emily and Grace and the life I was meant to live. I don't forgive Rachel. I don't think I ever will. But I'm grateful for the path her betrayal set me on. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you turns out to be the best thing that could have happened. Sometimes you have to lose everything you thought you wanted to find everything you actually needed. Epilogue. 5 years later, Jake Miller is the head of neurosurgery at Royal Melbourne Hospital. He and Emily have 3 children now: Grace, who is 5, and twin boys born 2 years ago. They live in a sprawling house with a garden where the children play while Jake tends to the roses Emily planted. Rachel still lives in Albany, in the same small house she moved to after Jake left. Tyler is now 14 and Madison is 12. They see Brandon Coleman occasionally, awkward visits that satisfy no one. Brandon's divorce was finalized 3 years ago, and he lives alone in a studio apartment downtown. His relationship with his daughter Ashley is strained but slowly healing. Tyler never stopped hoping Jake would come back, but as he's gotten older, he's begun to understand the complexity of what happened. He's a good student and a talented athlete, though he carries himself with the quiet seriousness of someone who learned too young that the people you love can disappear without warning. Madison has fewer memories of Jake but still asks about him sometimes. Rachel has learned to navigate these conversations better with her therapist's help, though she still struggles with guilt and regret. Scott Harrison practices law in Albany and serves as trustee for the education funds Jake established for Tyler and Madison. He and Hannah have 2 children and what appears to be a solid marriage built on honesty and mutual respect, perhaps informed by witnessing the destruction that secrets can cause. None of them know that Jake sometimes looks them up online, checking school honor rolls and local news to see how Tyler and Madison are doing. He's proud when he sees Tyler's name on the academic achievement list, glad when he spots Madison in a photograph from a school play. He'll never contact them. That chapter of his life is closed, but he carries a small piece of love for them still, the way you might carry a smooth stone in your pocket, worn soft by time and handling. Thank you for your viewing. See you next time. If you enjoyed this, subscribe to JK Tells a Story for more tales.